Hello and welcome to this virtual coffee lunch and learn edition. I am very excited to be here. Virtual Coffee's mission is to be a welcoming tech community that allows room for growth and mentorship at all levels and to create meaningful opportunities for learning, leadership, and contribution for everyone. To find our code of conduct, events, or to learn more about us, you can go to virtualcoffee.io. I'm going to be presenting today. We're heading into Hacktoberfest, and I am very excited to be able to walk through some of the things, do a little bit of an intro. I put the links into Slack already in the announcement, so you can find them there, but also feel free to ask questions at any time. You can throw those in the chat, and I'll try to make sure that I monitor that, and then we'll wrap up in about an hour. So I am going to start by sharing my screen. Maybe. All right, this is excellent. This is a great way to start. Let's try this again. Okay. All right, Jen gave me the hooray sign, so I am going to say that means you all can see my screen. So first of all, just a little bit of an intro to what Hacktoberfest is. Hacktoberfest is an event, a month-long event that is sponsored by DigitalOcean and some other people, but I think the main focus is with DigitalOcean. And it is a focus on open source contributions. And so open source repositories are places where we can find code, where we can contribute to those as well. And so that's why it's called open source, because it is open to contributions for everyone. So our virtualcoffee.io site is an open source project. And we like to think of the community as an open source community as well, because we've adopted a lot of the language and the processes in open source and applied them to what we are doing. So right now, if you're interested, you can check out hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. And you can't sign up yet, but I'm sure that will be open in a couple of days. When you participate and you sign up officially with DigitalOcean, you will have, I think the requirements are 4 pull requests in the month of October to open source repositories that have opted into Hacktoberfest. So the rules around that changed kind of mid-Hacktoberfest, I believe, last year. So definitely use this page to get up-to-date information on what that looks like and what you should be looking for. But for sure, we want to make sure that there's Hacktoberfest labels on the repositories that we're working for if you sign up. So step 1 is, once this is up and running, once there's a form here, definitely sign up for that. And when you get your 4 PRs submitted to Hacktoberfest opted in projects, then you can get a t-shirt and a sticker pack. And I think last year there was also an option, if you didn't want those things, you could plant a tree as well. Nobody is telling you that you cannot also plant trees by yourself and get the t-shirt. But that's what it is. It's just a really fun time to be able to work through this together and to build things as part of a community. And one of the reasons why we started doing this last year is we know how important open source can be to a lot of people, but a lot of times it's also not very accessible to find issues. And I know a couple of years ago when I was coming into tech, some people said, well, if you want experience, submit to open source projects. And I was spending hours just trying to find an issue that I could do and work on. And so we wanted to make sure that we can support people at all different levels, highlight projects from our members, and highlight some repositories that have things set up for everyone. And so this is where we called it VCHI last year. VCHI started, Virtual Coffee Hacktoberfest Initiative. So if you would like to participate as a virtual coffee member, definitely still sign up at Hacktoberfest because you want that t-shirt. But this signing up here just allows you the support of the community. It allows us to figure out how to pair you with mentors, if that's something that you desire, or if you want to be a maintainer. So you can do all of these things. Last year, I did all of these things and it was a lot of fun. You do not have to do all of them. You can do one or two. But go ahead and sign up. I think we'll be closing signups before sometime because we need to figure out how to pair mentors and contributors. And we also are working with maintainers and mentors as well to make sure that everyone here is supported. And so a maintainer is the person who is in charge of making the decisions for the open source repository. And so those are the people that you'll be working on their projects. You'll be working on projects that are governed by maintainers. And we'll also have a virtual coffee co-working room for Hacktoberfest. So there will continue to be the co-working room in Slack, but we'll also have a separate one for Hacktoberfest. So if people are working on issues, or if people want to meet up to do some group mentoring or discussion, that space will be open to you. And we're very thankful for our sponsor, Decentology, for providing us with what we need to be able to get that up and running. You can also find some information out here. We've got some FAQs and things. Your dashboard, I think the dashboard is a really cool added thing that we have this year. And so if you are a contributor and you want mentorship, double check and update your submission and make sure that you checked the box that you want a mentor specifically, because I think that somehow we initially missed that and we've updated it. So you should be able to see that. And there will be some resources or checklists, I think, in your dashboard as well. So definitely go through and work with that. Let's see here. So the next thing I wanted to get to is, and also if anybody has questions at any time, feel free to use the hand raise function as well. When you are looking at open source repositories and what to do with open source repositories, you'll want to check if they have a contributing guide and a README. These are going to be two really important places for you to look for the information that you need as a contributor. And so every repository is probably going to be a little bit different, although there are some standards for things. But read through those and make sure that you are going through their process in the way that they specify, because nobody wants you to do work that you don't get credit for, or to submit a pull request that gets rejected. That I think most people try really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen, but we also see it happen all the time. And so this is a good way to ensure that you know how to communicate with the maintainers of the open source project, and that if you have any questions, you know how to ask those or where to ask those. So the links to the what I'm going to be talking about today are also here in creating a pull request. And so you can go ahead and check out these guides. Oh, look here, we need a pull request here because this guide is not capitalized, and that definitely is the beginning of a sentence. So we're going to talk about some of these things. I'll walk through the examples, and yeah, I think that's it before I jump into anything else. So are there questions so far?
How you doing today?
All right.
I just want to say I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. So if you have questions, I don't have any sort of problem interrupting Bekah. So if you have questions and you want to drop them in the chat, I'll keep an eye on that too.
Okay, so let's see. The first thing I think that we want to do is, well, you want to make sure that you have a GitHub profile. So if you haven't done that, definitely go ahead and do that. You might I think you have to submit that as part of signing up for DigitalOcean. And you can do that just by going to github.com. So the next thing that you'll probably have to do is figure out how to respond to an issue, or how to create a pull request. So when you're looking at issues, you want to double check what is going on in the issues tab and see if you can find one. And again, make sure that it should have a Hacktoberfest label on it, I think, for it to count. And so, double check and make sure that that is available for you there. Yes, so PRs within our community should count towards the Hacktoberfest community. As long as you've opted in with DigitalOcean, we're working on having an event to start us off on October 1st. That will be at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll start by working through an issue together. So ideally, if you come on the 1st, you'll have your first PR already done and be ready to move on to your next 3. And that's a great question. And any questions are valid questions. So don't be afraid to ask anything.
I just wanted to clarify the question about the VCO. So if it's to the virtual coffee site, it will count. If you are in our we have a contributors repo that a lot of our teams are on, and that's private, and those will not count, just to be extra clear.
Yeah, right. It shouldn't be in a private repository. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is create a fork of the repository. So this is going to be fun because I almost never have to do this. So let's see. We're gonna click the fork button first, right? Oh, I have already forked it. This is an excellent example then. Maybe I should go.
If you run into this, actually, if you run into this, or if you forked something in the past and it's been a long time, actually a good thing to do here is just delete. You can just delete your fork. So if you want to just do that, unless you have some open work that you want to save, which is usually unlikely if it's been a bit of time, we can just go through that right now. So this is Bekah's version of the site, right? And so any changes you make here, like nothing's,
I would bet this is from
right. And see, and this happens a
year.
lot with open source, where you contributed something and then months or years pass, and then you want to contribute again, and oh gosh, I still have a fork sitting. So this fork is way out of date, and and you can see right there on the top that says this branch is 376 commits behind, which just means it's an old fork. So you can do this fetch it upstream. If you want, another way to do it is just to literally delete this entire fork. And so
we're going to go ahead and do that, but I would say this fetch upstream here is pretty cool function that makes it much easier to do that. But just to walk us through, let's see. Look, it even has the old logo. Okay, so Dan.
So yes, so go into settings, and so a fork is literally just a repository on your own account, and so this is the way you delete any repository is you just scroll down there, and there's a delete this repository.
Oh, it's the danger zone.
But you can see here it's Bekah/virtual coffee, so it's not like the official one or anything like that. And then once you do that, you can just create a new fork. And that's a clean and easy and fast way to make sure you're caught up to date, things like that.
Oh, here we go. We're going to go back. All right, now we can fork it. Just taking a few seconds. Okay, and so now we have, even with virtual coffee main, we are going to go ahead and clone the repository. I am going to find my terminal somewhere. Nope, that is not what I want to do. What? It does not want to come over here. Here we go. All right, now we're friends. But also, why am I running FaceTime?
Always a good question.
Okay. Let me just move this over here so it's not distracting. Okay, so I am going to put this in my projects folder. Git clone, and then I just pasted what I copied from it already exists. Show, and is not an empty directory. Let's go with, I'm gonna make a new directory. Let me call the bchai. So that mkdir made a new folder. I'm gonna cd into that. That's not the right thing. All right, so now I'm cd'd in there. And I should be able to. Okay, so now I can cd into bchai. Oh no, it's not bchai because it is called virtualcoffee.io. So that's what we want here. And you need to start with the CD, otherwise it will not work. And then I use VS Code, and I don't know if this is just the general command line, but code dot will open the Visual Studio Code with what we want to look at here. So are there any questions right now about forking and cloning a repository? Okay. I do not see any questions. Let's see. Oh, Linux. I don't know any questions or answers about Linux. So if anybody has questions, do not direct those to me. Okay, so then the next thing that you usually want to do. So if you are working on an issue, you probably, if you look through the README or the contributing file, you'll realize that you have to create a branch to do that. And so a branch is just working off whatever. So right now our main branch is called main, and we are going to work off of the main branch, but we want to put our issue in a different branch so we could work on it there without affecting what is happening with the main branch. So here, I normally just click in VS Code and I can create a new branch. And sometimes there are conventions for how different repositories want you to name things. And so you can, change that up based on what those directions are. So I'm going to type in, we're going to go with feature, and I'm not sure what we are updating here. I'll just put
fix that typo.
Okay, typo. Where was the typo? And contributing?
It's in contributing, yeah.
Okay, so now we've got this going, and I really like to run my terminal in VS Code. You can do that, but let's go ahead and look at what we've got here. All right, we can see down here that it shows that I am on my branch, which is important to look at and double check, because there have been times where I thought I was working in the right branch and I was not. And that was a sad, sad time for me. Okay, so let's remember what the typo said. Yes, Git stash will help with that for sure. Does anybody remember where the typo was? It was a
It was the
lowercase
word
letter.
this, wasn't it? The word this. That's.
It wasn't around the open the PR or pull request link.
I don't think dot will work because I think it was in a link. So just do like that. Just type this and see if it. I don't think a space will work.
26. Oh, so no space?
Yeah, no space because it was in the side of a link, and so.
Oh, okay.
I might have the wrong word too. Let me look at it. Okay, it's this guide is the phrase. It's inside of a link. It's like inside the creating a pull
That
request.
we recommend this
Yeah.
guide.
No, find another one.
There's another this guide.
Mhm.
Oh, here we go. This guide.
There it
This one
is.
here. Okay. So we have this. Go ahead and save that. We're going to write a commit message. And so I use get commit -am, and that's supposed to be like add and message. I think that's what it stands for. And then you want to use, usually you start with a verb. So I'm going to say correct capitalization. In contributing, I guess. Just something that isn't too long, but is specific enough that you can kind of look through it. All right, and I can't see because I've got everybody sitting there. All right, so we've got that one insertion, one deletion, and then if you want to go ahead and test it out locally, follow the README instructions for doing that, but just to make sure that you have everything updated, you can definitely double check that. And then you want to push it, git push. And so I can never remember what the right thing to type for this is. And this is why I really love this, because it just tells me, I know that it won't just work. We're setting, so if somebody has a better way of explaining what this all means to me, I know that you're setting upstream, you're looking at wherever origin is on the repo, and then you are connecting it to your branch. But I'm sure there's a better way of working through what that all means. It's there. Okay. So now we've got that done, and we can go to pull requests. All right, and you can double check here what's going on. So you want to look at what's the base repository, and that's the one that we initially started with, the one that we forked. And we want to make sure that we are sending it to the right branch. And in our case, it's main. It's not always main. So again, read through what the README says. This is where my repository, where my fork is, and this is what I am comparing it with. Okay, so we have this thing here that, oh, I should have done a real issue, that helps you to figure out how to describe what you've done. And so definitely look through all of these things as you are contributing, because you might be working on something that's a lot more code intensive. And so providing that information is really important to the maintainers so they can quickly review and see what's gone on. Now, if this were an actual issue, there's this nice thing that we like to do. So you can use, I don't know, I don't want to say they're called reserved words, but there are certain words that you can use to close the issue. So if we were say good repos, actually that's a discussion, so you can't close that. Let's see here. Let's look at an issue real quick. Improve our pull request template. That is number 335. So say we were working on that.
Becca, actually, if you use 343,
There's nothing there.
man, well, you might have to refresh it or something. I guess. I just made it. I made an issue for this.
Oh, you made an issue. Okay, cool. Closes number. You have to use a number sign. Hey, there we go. Hey, I worked on an issue. 343. So the nice thing is when the maintainer merges in your pull request, it will automatically close the issue. And I want to say that that sounds pretty simple, but it is definitely something that I appreciate, because sometimes I see open issues and I'm like, oh, we really need to get on this, but it's done. And somewhere along the way, that issue didn't get closed. So definitely, if it's specified, you can go ahead and do that. I don't know that there would be a reason for not closing it with merging a pull request.
There are. I mean, there's cases where it doesn't make sense. Like our ad issue,
Oh, right.
ad member issue. You know, we wouldn't want to do that. But lots of times, if your pull request takes care of the issue, then this is appropriate. And if not, you can just leave, like, don't have the word closes, but definitely link to the issue, because that is always very helpful.
Yeah, definitely link to the issue, and then provide a description of what you did, what updates you made. Let's see. I'm just gonna put that. That's good enough. So again, you can go through and read these and kind of figure out what's happening there. And then you can create your pull request. And so depending on what the repository says, they might ask you to request a review or to put somebody in the comments here. So I can request a review from Dan, and then he can go in and merge in that pull request if it looks okay. So are there any questions so far? Okay. Yes.
Would you like me to run through like a request changes or anything like that?
Sure, that would be super useful. So let me just get this question that's in the chat right now. The question is, can I still join even if I'm a newbie and I don't think I really help solving any issues? And I would say absolutely. You know, people at all stages can join. And one of the reasons why we have the sign up forms for everyone is so we can help and support you through that. And so one of the great things that happened last year was our mentors were pairing with contributors, and they were able to learn a lot through working with each other on things. And you'll find that sometimes there are low code issues that you can work on. There might be issues of updating documentation. And, you know, even for me, one of my pull requests last year came because the instructions for running the site were off. And so I updated that so other people could work locally on the site. And so there are definitely issues out there. And if you sign up, we're here to support you through that. Okay, so you will find that sometimes, okay, I'm going to go through this before I read the chat anymore. You'll find that sometimes maintainers will ask you to change some things or update some things, and that's normal. So don't freak out if you have a request for changes, but definitely look through. And if you have questions, ask them in the PR where they've requested the changes, because that allows for open communication and for everybody to kind of see how things are working out. So now Dan says, let's make the link text this guide from Scott Hanselman. So what are we going to do? We are going to find where I put that VS Code here. And I lost this guide. I would have been useful to write down the line. Wait, it should be here. Around 97. Too far. Okay, so here we go. Hey, Kirk is here. This guy from Scott. That's not how you spell his name. He would really not appreciate that. Hansel Min. And did I spell that right? It looks right.
I spelled it right in the request because I copied it from his website. So if you're concerned, you can copy it from there.
Yes, I will just do that because I want to make sure it's right. Okay, so I save that. I'm going to commit this. Let's add attribution to the guide update. What did I do there? One insertion, one deletion. We have to go ahead and push that up.
And I want to pause here real quick because this is a question that comes up is when you want to make changes, need to make changes to a pull request. So you create a pull request. The pull request becomes an ongoing thing. And so when somebody asks you to make changes, or if you just have your own changes to make, you do exactly what Bekah did and push up to your branch, and the pull request will get updated. This is as opposed to, closing this one and creating a new one, stuff like that. So the pull request is a request to pull this branch, but the branch is still like alive, and it's like a living document. So this, I wanted to especially call out like what Bekah did is like the right way to go. And then at this point, Bekah will show you like what to do, socially at this point, now that the fix is done.
Yeah, for sure. You just you don't need to close everything or delete and restart. It is okay. And it's okay to ask those questions. So if you find yourself in the situation where somebody requested a review and you're not really sure what to do, you can always reach out to them, or, reach out and help in pairing, or somewhere in virtual coffee, because somebody can walk you through this. And I know it could be a little bit exhausting or nerve-wracking to do that, but it's fine. So you can see here, my file has changed. Let's see here. It should be updated now. And you can check your file changed. So this is always really good too, if you go to files changed and double check that what you did do is actually there. Or there have been times where I think that I'm okay and I haven't done it because it's a minor change, and then I realized that I've accidentally bumped a key and now I have a typo in there, or I have misspelled something. So it's always useful to double check what you're doing. And then you can go back here and let's see. I can request this review from Dan. And I think
Also, if you hit that resolve, I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah, where is it?
It's by the comment. So this is one of those things where you can have inline comments. And so there's a button there that says resolve conversation. And so when it's right by the comment. So if it's right there below the comment. And so, this is like, okay, Bekah's like, okay, I did this, and this is a nice way to say, commenting is also great. Like the more communication, the better. You're never going to communicate too much in these sorts of situations. And so resolving the comment is a nice way to say this is done, and so when you look at now, Bekah, if you switch to the
virtual coffee.
No, the tab of the files changed, the comments show
I resolved the comment.
so now it's gone, right? Yeah. And so if it wasn't resolved, it would show up here, as a comment. That's just a nice touch. Maintainers can do that as well, but it's a nice thing to say, especially if there's a bunch of them, that, okay, I hit this one. I still have a question about this one, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I know I'm going to back up to some questions we have in the chat. I saw you name the branch feature thing I want to fix. Do you have any tips on housekeeping types of things like this, like commit messages, squashing commits, things that will make it easier for maintainers? I think that definitely check and see if maintainers have a specific way that they want things. I think having something that's descriptive but short is really important most of the time, or, it depending on what you are working on, whether it's a feature or a bug fix or something like that, that it might change. But I think, the standard for commit messages is using capitalizing the first word, which is an action verb in the present tense, but also that's to say, do your best with that and try not to freak out over what that all means. Dan or Kirk, do you have any tips for these things?
Yeah, I would say, so like step one, does the maintainer for the project have anything laid out in their contributing guide? If yes, then great. You just go along with whatever style they have. If not, then honestly, I feel like I was talking to Abby about this earlier. The main thing I'm usually interested in is that like the PR has like a name that's like sensible and approachable. Branch names, it's good to have a branch name that's associated with what you're working on, as long as it's like sensible and readable for other people. I think that's fine. And for the most part, people have different style of commits, different levels of granularity. So I feel like you should use commits that make sense for you. If it helps other people follow along, that's a bonus. So
Yeah.
step one, contributing. If there's nothing contributing, just try and be clear. And I think that usually works out 99% of the time.
The way that I like to think about it in my head is I like to make individual commits things that you would want to be able to undo, right? Because the way you undo something with Git is reverting a commit. And so the smaller the commits are, the easier it is to undo one thing, right? So that's kind of like the way that I like to look at it, and that's the way that becomes most helpful to maintainers too. So if this was a big pull request with a bunch of changes, and the commits were sort of almost atomic like that, then if we just wanted to like say, oh, let's like revert this one thing, it becomes a lot easier than if all of the work was just in one commit, then you'd have to go and hand edit the thing instead. So that's my kind of take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots of people too in Virtual Coffee that can give you more advice on how to do that or best practices for that. So again, like if that's one of the things that you're hung up on as you're doing open source work, then feel free to ask in there as well. I know, Meg was talking to me about cherry picking things the other day. I was like, that sounds amazing. And I don't know how to do that. So I definitely, would be something I have to look up or.
Yeah. I just like, there's been some talk in the chat about GUI apps, like a non-command line apps for Git, and it's one of the large benefits of using one is that lots of times in apps, like I use an app called Tower, and I can just like right click and
Dan
hit
could
cherry
not
pick.
get through this without mentioning Tower.
I can't because I can't because it's like it's so much easier. It opens the boundaries of like what you're able to do without it like being able to see things in context menus, things like that will let you know like, oh, this is actually a thing I can do other than memorizing the command line manual. So that could be something to look at too. Could be very helpful. It's still important to learn like what Git is doing when it's doing these things, but as far as actually executing them, there can be like nice ways to do this. That's my little tower. I know I couldn't help myself. I couldn't do it I was on the live stream yesterday and with Nick, and the same thing came up. I was like sitting on I was like muting my microphone so I didn't just start doing this. So sorry, everybody.
And so one of the things too, if you're worried about finding issues, we have a number of people that have submitted their projects for Virtual Coffee. So Virtual Coffee maintainers will be having issues open on their own site. And, that's a really friendly place to be because Virtual Coffee is a great group of people. We also have people outside of the community who have submitted as well. And so we're going to go through that maintainers checklist that you can find on our monthly challenge page right now. And the new monthly challenge for October will be Hacktoberfest, and we'll have a list of those repositories on there as well. So if you want a good place to start, that can be a really great place. And also, you know, asking around now in the open source channel in Slack could be a really great way to kind of start familiarizing yourself with issues and different code bases if there are some that you think that you would be interested in working on. Okay, I want to see, are there any other questions right now? In general, it doesn't have to be about any of the stuff that I've gone over about open source or Hacktoberfest. I want to make sure that if there are things that I've missed. No questions? Okay, I'm trying to think of.
Well, so what happens next? I mean, in our pull request process.
So the next part of the pull request, you can see, all right, so this is the virtual coffee site. Again, changes were requested. I re-requested that review, and I wait for the reviewer to go ahead and merge that in. And so sometimes this can take a couple of days, sometimes it can take a little bit longer. But again, be patient, especially during Hacktoberfest. I know that we want to make sure we get those for pull requests in, but we also want to make sure that we give a bit of time to our maintainers who are probably seeing a huge influx of contributions at this time. Go ahead, Kirk.
Just to say that depending on the project, I guess for most projects it'll be like this, where the maintainer is the one who does the merge, but
Yes.
Some people set up their projects where the person submitting the PR is doing the merge.
I don't, yeah.
So that's typically not the case for OSS though, unless you're on like the core team. But yeah.
Right. There's team dynamics, but for a public thing where you're not part of the organization, remember, I don't think it's even possible to have that happen. Right. And so Bekah's view is a little bit different than what you're going to see if you're doing this, because Bekah's, you know, a maintainer for this organization. If this was a pull request for you and you're not, right, you will see you'll see. So I just approved this. And so you'll see changes approved. If you scroll down, Bekah, you can actually see a little bit of, so there's this like deploy preview stuff, and you can see this. And so there's like a nice, some projects will have some automated stuff set up like this, and you can check it out, but you won't have a button that says merge or anything like that. And so at this point, your job is done, and then it's just up to the maintainers to either request more changes and or merge it, right? Should I merge it, or do we want to?
Yeah, why don't we merge it? Because
All right, cool.
it's done and we can see what that looks like. So you don't have to worry about anything after this point. So you don't have to close this or change anything. So once it is merged in, this little thing turns purple. And then if you go back to pull requests, you'll see that it is no longer there. So it's done. Hooray, you have made your first pull request. And I'll say too, for a number of repos, if you're making a contribution to something like documentation that you can do, you don't have to go through that entire process of forking and cloning the repo. You can do it. Let's see, this is maybe not the best one, I think. So I'm not sure how this would work since I have permission to do this here. Can I still? Okay, so if I wanted to change it in here, it's usually set up in the README. They'll say, hey, if you've spotted something like a punctuation mark problem or grammar, then you can go ahead and do it this way, which is just a much quicker way that doesn't involve so much. Usually those types of things don't necessarily count for Hacktoberfest contributions. So if that's what you're going after, then make sure that you double check on that. But you can commit your changes here. So rather than committing them like I did in VS Code, I can write information there. And then instead of commit directly to the main branch, which I don't know that everybody has access, I would think they don't, you can create a new branch for this commit and start a pull request that way. So that's a simplified way of being able to do changes like I just did. But you're certainly not going to do that, I don't think, if you're handling an issue that requires, a more code intensive change. Let's see here. There's also, okay, I was just checking the chat. I'm trying to think. So you can also use GitHub Desktop. There's a number of different ways that you can access the information and figure out what you need to do. So if you do have questions about using GitHub Desktop, which I used maybe for like the second time last week, it was like 2 days ago, I was talking to Kirk and I wanted to check out a contribution, a pull request. And so I needed to see a member's forked copy, and I just want to be able to do it quickly. And so using GitHub Desktop for that was a really easy way to do that. And that's not right there. Yeah, here you go. So instead of cloning it here, you can open with GitHub Desktop, and that gives you a whole new option. Kirk likes it with all caps.
I like
So,
it up almost as much as Dan likes Tower.
whoa.
It's
That's
pretty
intense.
cool. No, I mean, it's nice and it's also free, so it's a really great option to get started. And VS Code actually the VS Code's built-in stuff is actually pretty good too. And there's nothing wrong with using it. So you can do commits and branches and things like that right in VS Code without any plugins or anything like that too.
Mhm. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so this is just like the new find. So if you want to quickly look through something, I don't think that you can edit through this, can you? So what I did was on the virtual coffee site. No, I lost it. I just clicked the period wherever. You don't have to have your mouse pointing anywhere. And then it automatically gives you this preview, which is just a really nice way, I think, to kind of see what is happening quickly. And I don't know, it makes it easier for me to focus on what is going on. So that's a neat little trick. Code spaces are cool too. I've not used code spaces, but I keep hearing that.
Yeah, it's a private beta sort of situation, we didn't get into that one yet. So
It's a shame.
yeah. But
Yeah,
you can like do, so this is another situation where like, since Bekah's a member, she actually could, you actually could do commits
updates
directly to the thing, but this is just like VS Code. So you just like act like this is your own VS Code, and it has the Git stuff. If you Bekah, if you click on that little like branch icon on the left, no, not that one, like the big one in the left, in the like right under the magnifying glass.
Which one is the branch
Yeah,
one?
you can see like this
cool.
is just the same one as on your local, and so you can create branches and things like that. You'd want to create a fork and etc. if you're using this to contribute to open source. But
Can you do that from your own fork?
yeah, and your repository. Yeah, it's neat.
All right, we're almost at time. Are there any other questions? Leonard, we can definitely check out that pull request and make sure that you've got that up there. I think I see that in issue number 342. I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. If you have more questions or you want someone to help you walk through some things, or if you haven't signed up yet for our Hacktoberfest initiative, go for it. Even if this is your first time doing it, this is a really great community to do it along with. And I know that last year there were a lot of folks, people who were new, people who had been in the industry for years and who had never done it before because they were nervous about contributing to open source stuff. And because we did it as a group, it just made it a much nicer experience because it was part of a community experience. I also have lost all of my controls.